Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Get Literary Authors Roundtable at the 2022 Power Women Summit. I'm Elijah Gill, the social media manager and red carpet reporter for TheWrap. Now, let's meet some of these amazing women that we have today. Jessica Knoll is a New York Times best-selling writer of Luckiest Girl Alive and The Favorite Sister. She adapted and executive produced Luckiest Girl Alive for Netflix, which stars Mila Kunis. Lo Bosworth is the founder and CEO of Love Wellness and the author of Love Yourself Well, an empowering wellness guide to supporting your gut, brain, and vagina, coming out December 27th. In 2016, Silvia Vasquez Lavado became the first Peruvian openly gay woman to reach the summit of Mount Everest. Her memoir, In the Shadow of the Mountain, is being turned into a feature film, which is going to star Selena Gomez as Sylvia. Tembi Locke is a New York Times best-selling author, TV producer, actor, and screenwriter. She adapted and executive produced her memoir from scratch, a memoir of love, Sicily, and finding home, which turned into a Netflix series produced by Hello Sunshine from scratch. Hello, ladies. How are you guys today?
Very
Wow.
good.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining. Now, I would love to know from each of you where the inspiration behind all of your projects came from. Lo, I'll start with you.
All right, I was going to say, okay, who should go first? Hi, everybody. I know we already said hi, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I wrote Love Yourself Well as a reason, really to give customers of Love Wellness and women everywhere a better understanding of the gut, brain, and vaginal axis. So this is a science book. It's different than the other authors on the call, but it's really focused on providing education on how the gut is connected to both the brain and the vagina. At Love Wellness, we make total body care products for women that are based on biology. And so it's really an amazing sort of introductory guide to the baseline education that we all should have gotten about our bodies, probably back in high school. And it's a lot of scientific research wrapped up nicely in a bow for women to better understand how their bodies and the different organ systems all work together.
Tembi, how about you?
Yes, so my book is a memoir, and I really wrote the book as, I think, like all memoirists, it was a personal sort of quest and an answer I needed to sort of resolve for myself about grief and loss and love and family and forgiveness. And so the book follows the first 3 summers after my husband passed, and when I'm in Sicily with my mother-in-law rebuilding our lives. And I never expected the book to have wide readership, nor did I expect it to become a series. So it's been an incredible journey that is both very personal, but also wildly universal.
Jessica, how about yourself?
Well, Luckiest Girl Alive is a work of fiction, but it is inspired by real life events, real life trauma that I've experienced, which I've gone on to write about and come forward and identify publicly as a sexual assault survivor, which was something it took me 17 years to do. And so I really channeled that experience into the character of Ani Finelli, into the story of Luckiest Girl Alive. And kind of liked what Lo said about the education that we should have gotten about our bodies in high school. You know, I had to write this book because it was a very latent coming of age story about consent, about authenticity, about knowing yourself, all these important parts of becoming an actually fully realized adult. And I didn't have the tools to do that. So writing Luckiest Girl Alive really helped me, make major gains, I think, in my personal life, and connected me to a lot of women who had a shared experience.
And Sylvia?
For me, I am big about promises. And as people will read within the book, they will know that what led me to Everest was, this promise that I made to myself when I visited for the first time. And for me to bring the book forward on my anniversary of Everest, I ended up, I finished on the ICU because of a bike accident. And while I was there, the doctors found a small brain tumor at the base of my brainstem. And for a couple of days, they couldn't determine if my tumor was benign or cancerous. And so I remember having this moment for myself. And I told myself, okay, I'm going to make myself a promise. If it's cancerous, I will quit my job tomorrow and I'm going to try to bring my story forward to try to keep climbing as much as I can and keep inspiring women. And luckily, my tumor was benign, and it's been benign by my promise was born there. And so that became the impetus for me to eventually, get well, get strong, and be able to bring forward the story. So that is ultimately what led me here.
I love that, hearing that from all of you. Now, where did your guys' inspiration as writers come from? Was it until you experienced these real life events that you wanted to become writers, or did you have writers growing up that you loved reading? Jessica, I'll start with you.
I can't remember a time where I wanted to be anything but a writer. In middle school, I published a newspaper that we called the Philadelphia Inquirer, after the Philadelphia Inquirer, where I was from, and the name of my school was Villa Maria Academy. So we thought we were quite clever with that. I was always entering writing contests, and I got a writing scholarship to college. When I graduated college, I moved to New York. I became a magazine writer and editor at Cosmopolitan and later Self Magazine. And I always wanted to continue to push myself as a writer. I had big goals of writing a book one day, hopefully adapting it into a movie or TV series myself, which is what I did ultimately end up doing with Luckiest Girl Alive. And I had a lot of encouragement from my parents and from my teachers. And my grandmother, who in her 70s decided that she was going to become a writer. And so she self-published romance novels, Gothic romance novels, the bodice rippers, where the women are like fleeing a castle and, their clothes are coming off. But she was a very devout Catholic. So there was no sex in these books. So, the door would close, the couple would go into the bedroom, and that would be the end of the chapter. But she started publishing these books at 70 years old. And so it really taught me that you can, believe in yourself, have passion, and really this is something that you can do, because my grandmom did it.
Sylvia, how about yourself?
For me, I was born and raised in Lima, Peru, so Spanish is my main language. And as a survivor of sexual assault, and I was badly bullied in school as well, so having a voice was very difficult. And I found the outlet in poetry, and Spanish poetry is just incredible. So I think I started to develop a little bit of that. However, I got distracted with a corporate career. But whenever I would be in mountains, I would journal, because I didn't know if something would happen to me. And it was an opportunity of being able to bring the emotions, bring the fear, bring a lot of maybe those unfulfilled dreams if I wasn't gonna be able to continue. So I think they started serving me for a little bit of the inspiration when I really decided to bring the book forward, and be able to bring all of that, especially when you are a little bit exhausted, or when you've gone through a bad day in which you had a bad fall or something. It is amazing what emotions can come out, and the vulnerability. So being able to go through those and review some of that pain, I thought was very powerful, and served me tremendously when bringing the story forward.
Tembi?
Yes, I never really had professional aspirations of being a writer. I feel like in midlife, after a big life experience, I felt compelled to write a book, mostly because my sister, who is a writer, so that's an influence in my life, she kept saying, you have a story here, you have a story, you should write this book, you should write this book. And I will say, I, like Sylvia, had been a journaler my whole life. I have my journals when I was 14 years old. But to some degree, I think I was always writing, but I didn't imagine myself having, it as a professional career. But it was with the urging of someone who's very close to me, whom I respect very deeply, who is a writer, who said, I think you can do this. And of course, I took writing classes, on the side, mostly for my personal growth. And also because I was going through a big life experience, and I felt that writing was a wonderful way to navigate it and to unpack it and to understand it. But again, I thought those words would sort of stay in my computer or stay inside my journal. And then it became very clear at a certain point, one, I had the internal impulse to sort of really take what was, thousands and thousands and thousands of words and try to craft it into a cogent, narrative, and in the form of a memoir. And so, yeah, I really have to thank my sister for really sort of giving me, and I think I needed permission to sort of switch gears and sort of professionally say, let me endeavor to do this. And I think a lot of writers need permission. I don't think I'm alone in that. I wish I was like Jessica, where I was like, oh my God, I know I want to be a writer my whole life. Like I knew I was a storyteller, and I have that in my craft as an actor. But to sort of take up the computer, take the pen to page was a new, bold, brave endeavor.
That feeling of permission is universal, I'll have you know. Even for those of us who knew from the start they wanted to be writers, with everything new thing I write, I still have to find permission, and I have to remind myself, like, you don't need it. You can give yourself the permission, but.
Lo, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a little bit different, but it's interesting, right? I'm the CEO and day-to-day operator of a business. It's a business that I created based on my own personal experience and story, though. And so in Love Yourself Well, sharing that story really helps to frame why the business exists and why women deserve better when it comes to their bodies. So for me, I'm a big fan of authors like Malcolm Gladwell, Robert Greene, the intersection of, science, psychology, culture, but also David Sedaris. I think that, that kind of writing and reading can be really fun. And those are my favorite types of things to get into. And so for me, I think I draw a lot of inspiration from narrative nonfiction, when I'm communicating in the book, right? I'm telling my own story, but when it comes to women's bodies, when it comes to our vaginas and our digestive systems and wrinkles, right? There's so much stigma attached to this. And if you are able to communicate it in a way that is straightforward and real, but also be able to inject some humor into it, I think it's a really profound way of changing the conversation around our bodies in general. So that's really what I was thinking about when I wrote this book. But again, I'm not, an amazing writer like the rest of you women on this call. I'm a founder and CEO. So this was really, it was a really challenging project for me. To get the words out like this and, to compile all the research together. It was really like climbing a mountain, figuratively, Sylvia.
Definitely, this was my biggest inner mountain to do, for sure.
I would echo that. I mean, definitely, it is, it's the permission, it's the excavating, it's the sort of refining of what you want to say, how you want to say it. I wrote the book first for me, but when I got into edits, I was reading the book as a reader and saying, could this book offer something to the world?
Yes.
Was I always keeping the reader in mind? Was I being as refined and as clear in my language? It's such, it is a big intellectual and creative endeavor, no doubt. And I looked to a lot of fiction, right? I thought, well, how does fiction do it? Like Jessica, how do you compellingly hold the reader from chapter to chapter to chapter? And I read a lot to hopefully be a better writer myself.
I was going to add that for me, just imagining, I mean, this is a book that I wish I would have read when I would wake up, on the ER after passing out from drinking. And I wish I would have been able to encounter somebody who would be so vulnerable to open about that pain. And so that, Tammy, as you were mentioning to me also, that became my North Star, knowing that I wasn't alone, that there were other people out there who were struggling, who would find the story helpful. and allowing them the opportunity to know that it's okay to just share the grief, to share the pain. And so that also became the inspiration to really overcoming the fear that maybe I'm not good enough, or just many of the challenges.
Now, I would love to know from all of you how difficult it was, if it was difficult at all, to be taken seriously as a writer. And Lo, I would love to know your point of view, since you started off in the limelight at a young age, to be taken seriously as a CEO and as an author. Was that difficult, or was it an easy transition?
Oh, it's been a journey. I grew up on reality television, and I'm so grateful for the experience, but it's like Pandora's box. It's open and it can never be closed again. And so for me, a really long time ago, I had to decide, okay, Lauren, what is the life that you want to live? How do you want to leave your mark on this earth, right? And I moved to New York 11 years ago, and I started this company about 7 years ago. And when I first started the company, the press that came out was very like, wink, wink, Nado, this girl who was on TV is starting this company, and, this category isn't real, and, what is she doing? And, 7 years later, we have completely changed what it means to be a woman and consume wellness products. And so I'm incredibly proud of, all of the effort that I've put in over the past, 7-10 years. But it's about like being real and coming to the table every single day, and like being willing to storytell, right? To like talk about yourself and your experience. And so for me, I would say that consistency has really been key. And I am really hopeful that by putting a book out and sharing my story, and also like my deep passion and love for my business and the science behind all of it, that it will continue to, help me on that journey, right? Of, my own authenticity, but also, I think me trying to solve this like lifelong sort of problem that I've dealt with, which is, trying to, or like my personal, I don't know, experience of being on reality TV. I was like, oh, I'm embarrassed, right? And so I've always been trying to like move away from that and like do big things. And so for me, the book is, I think it signifies a major accomplishment for me from like a career perspective.
Sylvia?
To be taken seriously, I mean, as a mountaineer has been really hard. I mean, it's a male, and I come also from a tech background too. So I picked up the two areas that still we have a lot of work to do. Yet I would say, I think I've been fighting against the odds ever since I left Peru. And one thing that we have, I mean, even as a climber, as a mountaineer, I'm not here to break any speed records. But the one beautiful thing we all have as women is endurance. And that is something that we can apply to all of our dreams, to trust. I mean, if it's in our heart, if we can just know that, I mean, for me, I had the idea to really bring forward my story, especially when I didn't know how much longer I was going to have in life. And hopefully to know that other women, other girls, other boys would be able to get inspired was really something really special. And I think that helped me tremendously to let go of all the naysayers and to keep going against the odds. And the beautiful, one of the things that I love sharing with women is, as a climber, I literally have broken through ice barriers. I have to climb through ice barriers. I have to break, ice ceilings. I'm very lucky to experience that. But I've seen it. I mean, even on my own experience climbing Everest, I was the only woman with 7 guys who were taller than me, who kept criticizing, who thought that I would be the first one out. And I ended up, being one with 3 more other guys because the 4 other stronger ones weren't able to continue. So it's about women being able for us to embrace our endurance, to pursue it on anything that we want to do, and to keep proving people wrong. And I think that is something I'm grateful for, and especially on this journey, it's a beautiful light to have.
Jessica?
Well, I think it depends on who it is that's taking me seriously, because in the book world, I always felt that I had a ton of support, a lot of interest in writing this book, then a lot of interest from the readers and so on. When it came to adaptation, that was a different story. And I think it's just because to make a movie or to make a TV show, it's so incredibly expensive, time consuming. There are so many moving parts. So much has to align to get it to work. And you have to convince so many more people that yours is the thing that's going to be worth all of that effort and all of that money. So that's where the challenge came in. And I recently learned that my project, my story, was something that was referred to on the executive side of things as what's known as a feathered fish, which means they don't know how to categorize it. They don't know what genre Luckiest Girl Alive, this story, falls into. Is it a dramatic character movie? Is it a mystery? Is it a thriller? And so people don't like that because when they can't put it into a box, they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to get a return on the product. And so it becomes a very risky thing. I always felt confident that if you just gave us the shot, we would prove to you that we were worth it all. And we were the most watched movie the month it came out, the month of October on Netflix. The numbers that we've done have just exceeded everybody's expectations. We're up there competing with some of the real big ones, the action movies, the big money ones. And so what's crazy is I don't know if this changes things for me going forward, because I still think people are scared, but I understand it. I don't judge it. I do get it. But it's still a pretty good feeling to know that you can trust that inner gut feeling, and I think trusting that is key, because then you show people with your confidence, like, you can trust me because I know this is going to be okay. And I did always try to project that. And I had to project it for many years until we got to the point where it was finally a movie that was being made. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be my advice to anyone is, in your gut better than anyone, and listen to that voice. It won't ever steer you wrong.
100% agree.
I want to know from all of you, what advice would you give to young female writers who want to break into the industry? And also, how can they break into the industry in Hollywood as well, wanting to adapt their books into either TV series or movies?
Yeah, I'll kick that one off simply by saying, I was very nervous as an actor switching gears and people not taking me seriously. I was a non-famous actress who was an unpublished writer. Like, who's going to take a bet on that? Right? And in fact, people said, I don't think she can write this. They said that at the book stage. I'm sure there were questions about it at the screenwriting stage. What I will say is, if you know something that no one else knows and you know it inside out, and you put the work and the time and the craft and the learning and you ask the questions, you can do this. I knew unequivocally that there was no one who could adapt my story. I will say that again. No one could adapt my story better than I could. I had things I could offer that no one else could. It didn't mean I knew everything. Didn't mean I didn't need a bang up team behind me who could help me. But I think if you want to break in, that belief in oneself is going to be very critical. And then you have to back it up with the work and being willing to show up again and again, make mistakes, ask questions, show up again, make mistakes, ask questions, show up again. It can be done. I'm proof.
I will second that. It's that passion. If you have passion for something, that is a big, big, big ingredient that you need in a project, in a movie, in a TV show, in a book. Passion counts for a lot. But it's not enough. And you might have to go out of your comfort zone in terms of letting people know that you have this passion and you want to do it. I think that I thought if I raise my hand and say I want to be the one to adapt this, even though I've never written a movie before or a TV show, I've only written books and for magazines. If I just say that, then I can sit back and then they know and I've done my job. No, you have to be the squeaky wheel. You have to, and it is for most writers, I would assume, the writers I know, how I am. I think for a lot of women as well, it's very uncomfortable to be the squeaky wheel. So I would say, even though it might feel awful to keep pushing yourself out there and keep insisting to people that you can do this, that's what has to be done.
And I would add to what Jessica and Tammy said, don't be afraid to fail. You're going to have a lot of rejection, and that is okay. Networking, extend out. Just trust that originality, trust that inner truth inside of you that you need to bring it to the world. If you already have visualized it, if you feel that you're going to bring it out, then it's going to come out. And asking people, networking, attending, and don't be afraid of rejection. For every 10 rejections, eventually one window will open up and it eventually will lead you to the door. So just keep trusting. It's only every single additional rejection only gets you stronger.
Yeah, I agree. I echo all of the sentiment. I think that showing up every single day is incredibly important. And I also am a deep believer that the internet has democratized a lot. And if you have a story to tell, there are platforms that you can do that on. And Gen Z, if this is advice for young female writers, they know that better than anybody else. They run circles around us on the internet already. Just spend 5 minutes on TikTok and you will see what I mean. So I think that, use the tools that you have at your disposal. And if you do it every single day and you're passionate, people will notice.
And I would also say find a mentor or a sponsor if you can. Someone who's doing what you want to do, and bend their ear, talk to them, ask questions, ask them if you can follow up with questions maybe a few months down the line after you've done some more research, but cultivate that relationship.
Lo, Jessica, Sylvia, Tembi, I could literally talk to you ladies for hours, but unfortunately we're out of time. I want to thank all of you for joining me today, and thank you all for inspiring the millions of other female writers who are looking up to you. We really do appreciate you. Thank you all for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of Power Women Summit 2022.